Hey everybody, welcome to Whiskey Wednesday, where we talk about the internet's most important topics. Today is going to be part 2 of the episode that we started last week. So if you are just finding this episode, highly recommend you hit the little thing I'll put up in one of these corners to hit that link and go watch the first part. If you are coming back to finish this episode, thank you so much for coming back. We're really going to dig in more into some of the mindset and what it looks like for schools to try to implement arm teachers into the school system, what it looks like for teachers, what it looks like for districts, what it looks like for parents, all those important things we're going to be getting into this episode here. So keep watching. Let us know what you think down below. Make sure you hit the subscribe, the bell, all that stuff, so you can hear more about the things that we're doing here and trying to educate you guys on topics such as arm teachers in schools. Let's get right to it. I think one of the big questions that we have is what makes Sally or Bob the answer to this? Why do we need to arm and put more guns inside of a school where we're trying to keep guns out of a school? What's your response to that?
It shouldn't be so controversial, first off, because we know who needs to show up when a threat shows up in our school. We call somebody with a gun. If somebody shows up, they're trying to hurt people with a blunt instrument or an edged weapon or a gun, we're calling somebody that can trump whatever they have through training, the sheer will, right, and weapons to deal with them. Are you willing to wait that amount of time? So how do we mitigate that time factor? Because, like I said, time is all that matters. So, well, we can put SROs in the school. That's really expensive. You up your local law enforcement roster by a huge deal, and then in the time that school's not in, then what do you do with these officers? Do you lay them off? Are they just part-timers then? What do they do? And those are options for some places. Because
one of the big things I see a lot is, you know, why don't we train and hire our veterans that are around and put them in school? There's a lot of them would want to volunteer for something like that. Is that even an option for
yeah.
I guess that would be like a per district type of,
the school could say, we want to hire a security guard. We're going to make them faculty. Guess what? They can take the FASTER program, become faculty. And I'm not against that. The thing is, if Sally and Bob already work in my school district, I already know them, I know who they are, and they're already going to be in the building anyways. They're already vested in here. They know who my kids are. They're willing to, like Victoria Soto, covered her students up and tried to protect them and got shot up for it in Newtown. So what if we armed Victoria Soto? Even if the security guard was there, if she's willing and able and smart enough. I mean, hell, she's got a degree in teaching and she's willing to come every day and deal with a bunch of screaming kids who just destroy the classroom and don't listen sometimes and they're hard to deal with. The shooting is easy. Decision making, we can teach people how to be good decision makers. The people in the school, I think, are one of our best assets. Now, if you find a school that they're like, there's nobody there, then that's great. That's where we need to mitigate that. We need to bring in somebody else. We need to hire somebody, whether they're overt or covert security, meaning everybody knows they're security, or they're the new janitor that happens to be armed. And that we get a lot of janitors, custodial folks, who are the armed responders. And those are the best because they have the keys to everything. Mm-hmm. Nobody pays any attention to them. They're Clark Kent walking down the hall because the kids, they can't do anything. They're not authority figures. Nobody pays them any attention. And they got eyes on everybody. Those are great folks to be. But if you can't find somebody, then that's where you mitigate it. There's, security is all about layers. It's like a big old onion. You just keep peeling, and each layer means something. We need cameras. We need, good locks. We need the ability to buzz people through. We need, those areas that are buzzed through so nobody can shoot through the glass or break it with a sledgehammer and just enter. That's just another layer. But if we know the front office is our most weakest, vulnerable spot, why isn't somebody in there trained? And then why isn't everybody in the faculty, or at least 50% of them, trained for trauma care?
So this is the question I was going to have is, what if a school says, we don't want any armed armed faculty. But the rest of this sounds great. Do you guys train?
Build up those
Do you
layers.
say, okay, we won't do firearms training, but we'll do the TCCC and all this stuff?
I'm all about it, because what's going to happen, most people, education will start to open you up to new things. And you when you see how important it is to get a tourniquet on and why it's important to get a tourniquet on, you start to realize, I want a faster response time. When we do active killer response training on just doing good lockdowns and when to get out and when to stay in and how to barricade and all this other stuff, people start to realize, I want that other option. How do we get that other option? Again, it's not always the faculty. I don't want to push that. If a school district can get law enforcement in there, former, maybe retired law enforcement, maybe retired military.
I'm not being a very good skeptic here. But
I know, you suck.
I suck at this. But there are some misnomers about HB 99, but even just armed teachers, armed faculty in general. And I think it's interesting to hear that there are other options, that schools, if they're open-minded enough to just learn about this, which by the way, I was talking to a friend who's a principal at a local school. He said most of the schools around here have already had meetings that said, nope, we're not doing this, and they've already just squashed it even before they really had an opportunity to hear about it, which is sad that they aren't even willing just to hear about it. But there are other options than armed faculty. People think that if a school district accepts this, it's going to be a mandatory thing for the faculty. That's not the case at all.
It's so common. Everybody thinks, well, I don't want to carry a gun. You can't make me.
Not trying to.
So one of the great things about this is when the school, it has to be approved by the school board. School board gets together and they say, okay, we want to do this.
So this isn't the teacher going on their own saying that I want to do this. This is a school board.
But yeah, the school board says, hey, we're going to allow this. But first you got to get permission. The school board says, we're going to authorize people once we get them. And what they should do, and they're all a little bit different. Sometimes they go, okay, hey, who wants to do this? Come talk to us at some point. Send us a resume or whatever. And there's a lot of school districts that they don't even ask for them to come out. What they do is the superintendent knows somebody and he goes out and goes, hey, would you be interested in doing this? And it's not because, you own Neomag and you just happen to teach English third period. Right. They're coming to you because they like you. They know you and they think you have the ability to do it. You may not even have, and it may be a long term. It's kind of like hiring somebody to sweep your floors and you realize this guy's got some skills to do some other stuff. Let's get him on a CNC machine and start teaching him, training him up because he has potential to do other things than just sweep our floors or take our garbage out or, whatever. So it may be a long pipeline for them, but they started early. They say, hey, would you be, yeah, I'm willing to do it. Okay, this is what we need to do. Oh, I shoot all the time. I just don't tell my coworkers because people look down on it. Oh, well, that's great. And they get that person in the pipeline. And each year they just trickle more in and more in until usually it's not a lot of people. Most school districts, there's a couple of them that are one building, K through 12, and they, on the high end, they're having like 8 people. 8 armed teachers out of like 40 faculty members. That's like a high number. A lot of times it's one building is lucky to have one person. Right. But that's one person. That lowers your response time.
So this is something else I've heard is so you are a faster trained teacher and you're doing everything that's necessary to teach there. Something happens at your school. Are you mandated? Do you have to go and hunt down that shooter? Do you have to? What's required of a teacher in a school shooting situation to do?
So it's the mission drives the tactics and the equipment. So we have kindergarten, first grade, second grade teachers that are carrying guns. Or I shouldn't say carry, they're trained. And they don't carry it on their person. It's in a biometric lockbox in a secret spot. I'm not even going to hint to where these things are because I don't want anybody snooping around there during ice cream socials trying to find the gun box. But they think through this very deep. They put these biometrics, so it only takes their fingerprint or the security team's fingerprint to pop open the door, and then they can grab the gun. And maybe it's in a fanny pack, and then they're going to town. but they don't want to carry because they're hugging all day.
Right.
You know, when my kids were
hanging on.
little, they're always coming out hugging and bumping their head against my gun, and I'm like, shh, don't tell anybody.
kids are
It's
used to
Dad's
that
secret.
now.
Yeah, they're used to it now. But you can't have that in a first grade class. So what they do is they put it in the biometric lockbox. Their mission changed. They run differently in that security team, meaning they don't leave the room. What they do is they lock down that area of the hallway. And a lot of these places have teacher's aid. So they work in with the teacher's aid. So they won't even leave the area. What to do is they'll step outside the door, barricade, and they'll stay right there, and the teacher's aid will be in with that. And they just lock down that hallway. So that's what we consider an ambusher. So you have hunting and ambushing. So some teachers, some faculty members, the custodian, perfect for hunting. But if he knows the gunman's coming his way, he can set up for an ambush.
Right.
So the tactics are dictated by their ability, the limitations of their job and what they can or can't do, what they feel comfortable doing, and what the bad guy's doing. But we know what happens when he's not aggressed. The bad guy, when aggressed, is either going to commit suicide, he's going to flee, he's going to get killed.
Yeah. That's
what
data.
happens.
Yeah, that's data that we
That's
have.
data
from
driven.
Every single school shooting. That's exactly what's happened. So I think another misnomer is it sounds like with HB 99, it sounds like, because I think it's worded maximum of 24 hours. So it sounds like that is the max that you have to take.
Yeah.
And
That's just a protection so they don't bump that number up even higher. So they can't go back and say, oh, we're going to make it 700 minimum. So the max is that you have to do is 24. It's worded weird.
It's worded, yeah.
Yeah. When I first saw that, I was like, why does that say that? And people smarter than me when we were down at the State House explained. They're like, oh, this is why.
Gotcha. Well, I have a friend who messaged me after I posted that question on Facebook, who carried in his school for 3 years. And he went and explained what was required of him. And it was very extensive. It was monthly training. It was like 100 rounds a month. He came in on like, it was at least one Sunday a month, if not two a month, into the school to do force on force, do room clearing. It was quite extensive. He had to have the gun. For him, had to be on his person, and it was very in depth. The school principal and the school board. It was a very well orchestrated. It sounded like it was a very well orchestrated and watched over thing. So, so one of the things I learned from all this is that just because it says maximum 24 hours, that's not really where the bar is at. The bar is at wherever the school district wants to set the bar, right?
Oh, yes. And most of them do. The ones that I'm working with, I get calls from them all the time. Hey, can we do this? Can we get 2 hours in here? We want to try this out. Hey, can we get in a whole 8-hour day in here?
So what's the norm that you see from the schools that you're working with? What does the average school look like for how they handle this? And I even want to know, how does a district handle public knowledge of this? Like there's so many layers to what this must look like. So, but
I'm glad you brought that up.
yeah.
Because
So what does this look like for your average school?
before I forget, House Bill 99, one of the problems in there was that now the school has to announce publicly that they are carrying. What that announcement is going to look like is unclear. It's because it's written kind of vaguely. So they may just be able to post it someplace, send out a newsletter explaining new security measures. I don't know. But it worries everybody because the last thing, part of this is that Clark Kent persona is we don't know who the superhero is in the school. And that lends itself to a really powerful security tool. That's covert security. That's like Secret Service. As long as you don't have that fake arm in your suit,
right.
Sooner or later someone's going to pick up on it, right? We've all seen that picture. But the Clark Kent walking through the school, we don't want a list put out saying, oh, the armed teachers in Acme School District are Mr. Smith, Mrs. Jones, and, that's not what we want.
Yeah.
What we want is what we're seeing right now is the average school that we deal with, and I hate averages, but the typical school that we look at is probably 4 to 6 armed individuals for the school district. They have like 1 or 2 buildings because there's a lot of small school districts in the state of Ohio. The bigger ones will be scattered in some way. But 4 to 6 people, they are running qual every year. They have all gone through Faster 1. There's also a level 2, which is just a more intense version of level 1, essentially. We're adding a few more things on medical and more shooting and moving and some tactics and stuff. But they'll go through level 1. I've had people go through level 1 5, 6 times now. They just keep going, and they go through it with us. They go down to TDI and take it. They go out, they take some class from, Joe Schmuckatelli Tactical, and then they come back to us, and they go back down to TDI. They're constantly learning, so they're always doing that. Like every year, they're usually taking at least a 1 or 2 day class, if not a 3-day, like a faster level 1 class. They're usually partnering with a local trainer or local law enforcement agency who understands what they're trying to accomplish, and they're working anywhere, like you said, your friend, 50 to 150 rounds a month. Sometimes they'll go 100 rounds every other month, but they're shooting more than most law enforcement officers, and they're shooting more than law enforcement officers are mandated by the state of Ohio. I think where most of them, I feel, because it's what we get the least amount of requests for, is force-on-force training. But again, law enforcement's not required to do it either. They're still requiring it, or they're still requesting it, but you just don't see a lot. So I don't know what they're doing outside of the stuff that we're providing.
Interesting. So there's some pros and cons to a school notifying its people, and I can understand how moms and dads want to know if there's teachers armed in there, and I couldn't imagine kind of that turmoil that some of those parents would have to have if they're extremely uncomfortable with this. Of what do you do if I'm in a school district where teachers armed in there, and I think that's the worst thing ever. And even talking to my wife, she said just that she could imagine what kind of turmoil that would create within the staff in a school too. If you have a school of 100 teachers and 98 of them hate the idea of guns, but they know that there's a couple armed, even if they don't know them by name, they're probably figure out pretty quick who's the armed teacher. So just there's complications within a workplace in this situation too. That would be hard. Do you guys have anything to help with that situation?
Boy, there's a whole lot to that. And what's going to be interesting is prior to House Bill 99, they didn't have to notify anybody that they were doing it. So we're going to learn a lot really early. There's a couple school districts that I feel for them, because that was some of the first emails and phone calls that I fielded once this came out. It was like, how do we handle this? Because we have such a small area, and when we've gone on and we've done a active killer response training, essentially lockdown, when to get out, that sort of stuff, for all the staff, not just the armed staff. And these schools don't know that there's armed faculty in their building. And sometimes they'd be like, it would come up. They'd be like, oh yeah, I wouldn't want to, I wish we had a school resource officer. I was like, well, what do you think about an armed teacher? Oh no, I don't trust any of these guys. And you're like, you don't trust them? What if I bring my kids to your school? Why should I trust you then? Right. If you don't trust them with, so can we, I think there's a lot of misinformation about what makes somebody trained, and the sooner we educate them, the better it's going to be. But there's going to be this explosion of emotions when people find out, oh, we were doing this for the last decade to begin with. Yeah. We just didn't tell you. So you're going to have a few people throw their hands up and walk out, and they're going to find a job some other place, and it is what it is. I think at the end of the day, people will be upset, and then they're going to listen to reason and not be emotional, and they're going to be intelligent about it. And because that's because you have two responses, emotional response or intellectual response. Yeah. And everybody has the emotion. But now let's look at it and take an intellectual approach to, what if if we've been surviving this long with them and we haven't had an incident, doesn't that prove that it's working? That it was a valid, and we validated the people we have in there. I'm not saying that's the great way to test it, but we validated them to carry. We trained them to carry, and then all of a sudden we carried for almost a decade, and we didn't have an issue. I think we got the right people in the spot.
So these people have also taken training not just on shooting, but also on mindset, on de-escalation, on medical. And these are people that truly want to be a line of defense and protect these kids, your kids in the schools, and not just lock a door and hope for the best.
They are the best people we have in the school. I'm biased because I've trained with them, and they are good-hearted people. They're men and women, they're younger and they're older, and they are just phenomenal people. Everybody who's gotten a certificate from us, I would be more than happy to send my kids to their class, to their school. Yeah. Because I know they care. They would walk through fire for my kids. And who better to ask, you know?
Right.
If not me, then who? If not now, then when?
Yeah. So I think it's there's a lot here to chew on and understand. I highly recommend, if your school district, if you don't know where your school district lands, and maybe you're for this, maybe you're against this, reach out to your school district and find out where they lie in this. If they're a school district that has said, nope, we've already squashed this, challenge that. If you're somebody who feels like they should at least take, mindset, medical, and de-escalation, there's more to this. There's more that faster and these things can do than just putting guns in hands and hoping for the best. That's not what this is. So reach out to your school district, challenge whatever they've done if you don't agree with it. And yeah, the
program is Faster Saves Lives. So Faster Saves Lives, there's people that you can call, email. They'll come out and they'll help answer those questions. They'll talk to you about the budget side of it and what we can do and what we can't do and what other school districts have done. They can set you up with it. Yeah. The answers are there. You got to educate yourself, like with anything.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the media is not telling you anything. I did some work of trying to find more information from the media before we met. Just what's out there is so minimal, and it truly doesn't tell the whole story of what HB 99 or Faster or any of these things are about. I couldn't even find one article where they talked to a school that was doing it. And maybe they didn't try, or maybe they couldn't find, or I'm not sure how secretive schools are about that thing. But
they'll talk. New York Times actually came out to one of our last classes. We've had NPR out there. We've had some British news. We've had a ton of media. Shooting USA did a great, if you want to find out more about it, there's a Shooting USA episode out there, just re-aired recently. Yeah. And it's great too. So they're out there. You don't hear about it.
Yeah. You're not going to see it in your headline on Apple News and Facebook News.
And there's always a spin.
Always. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and giving us facts from the inside. And if you guys have any questions, please leave a comment below. And Andrew or myself will do our best to reach back out to you, or maybe do a follow-up and we'll grab a different bottle or something.
Sounds awesome. You got a great collection, so.
Yeah. That's just a small part of it too. Right. But all right, guys, thank you so much. Remember, hit subscribe, hit the bell, and we would love to hear from you. And we'll see you guys next time. Cheers.
Cheers.